Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Because every house has to have a foundation, it was laid strongly on my heart to start this podcast with a daily series. I am using the book, The Bible in 52 Weeks, which you can buy for men or for women. I invite you to read along with me. I'm in Exodus 4 through 7 today, and I actually talked a little bit about Exodus 4 yesterday on accident. I got ahead of myself. I was talking about Moses and his reluctance to take on this task. I think he believes God. He believes in God's existence. He believes in God's power. Maybe he doesn't fear Him enough. He seems kind of like a petulant child. I feel like I've had conversations like this with my kids when I ask them to do a simple task, and they have all kinds of excuses as to why they aren't the right person, or someone else did it last time, or their foot hurts. There's all kinds of different excuses, and they do that because they don't necessarily fear me. They do in a sense, but not like I would expect you to fear God, who is burning a bush in front of you. And Moses keeps trying to get out of this job. So he asks for a sign, which is interesting. It feels a little like testing God. I'm going to need a sign. And I think instead of asking for a sign that God is God, he's asking for a sign because he doesn't believe that He is going to be enough. And I have definitely been there, and even before doing this podcast, thinking I'm not enough. I'm not the right person. I'm not good enough to be able to share whatever message you have. And at some point in chapter 4, God says on verse 11, he actually says, "Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Isn't it me?" He's kind of saying, I'm just going to put, in 12 he says, "Now then go, and I, even I, will be your mouth and teach you what you are to say." And I think that is, anytime we are asked to do something, to step up and do work, speak God's name in a situation, when we feel that uprising in us that we're being asked to do a task for God, we often come up with every excuse in the book. But the truth is that it's God wanting to work through us. So it's not really us. We don't have to doubt ourselves, because it isn't us that's going to do the work. It's just us being willing to be used. And Moses really has to go on a journey to learn that here. So he doesn't believe that he's going to be convincing, and he asks for signs. And so God first tells him to throw down his staff, and he becomes a snake. Snakes aren't beloved in this time because they could bite you and kill you. So Moses runs away. He runs away from his staff, and God coaxes him back and says, "Hey, I'm in control of this situation. Grab the tail and it'll turn back into a staff," and it does. So the next thing he says, "All right, I'm going to give you another sign." And so he has Moses put his hand into his tunic, and when he pulls it out, it's leprous and withered and sick. And then he puts it back, and it's strong. It comes back out again, strong and whole. And then the third sign is in particular with the Nile. He has him draw water from the Nile and spread it on the ground, and it becomes blood. But even with all of these signs, Moses doesn't feel that he's going to be able to take care of things. And so he finally just says, but can't you get anybody, like send anybody other than me? And it says in verse 16, that the anger of the Lord burns against Moses. I think he loses his patience with his child here, and in exasperation says, awesome, just get your older brother Aaron. He speaks really well. He's going to be your second half. And Moses finally gives in. I guess he feels like if he's got somebody with him, maybe he's not so scared. He does have special access to the Pharaoh, and on his way, as he's traveling, God lets him know that he's not in danger anymore. But first he has to go to Jethro, his father-in-law, because he's been living a shepherd's life. He's been out away from Egypt for some time with the Midianites. And this reminds me of when Jacob had to go to his father-in-law with his wives and his kids and his flocks and say, hey, I've got to go back home. And that didn't go so well for Jacob. But here, Jethro is a better man. And Jethro graciously lets Moses go without a fight, doesn't make him feel bad, doesn't chase him down. And Moses is on his way. So Moses, with this special access, gets in front of Pharaoh and is able to speak the message that God is asking him to speak. You need to let my people go. Israel is my people. Israel is tantamount to my first son, my firstborn son, and I need you to let my people go to worship me. And the story that is going to be repeated to Pharaoh, that what needs to happen is they want to go 3 days out from Egypt to sacrifice and worship God. Well, Pharaoh, as we saw before, does not want to let the people go because they are economically important to him. They're a pain, and he's trying to make their lives really hard, but it's because he wants to control them and keep them. He's trying to hold on to them, ironically, in contrast to the story of Moses' mom. Here, Pharaoh thinks that the harder he holds on to something that he wants, the better off he'll be. And so he doesn't let go. And Moses sees the negative response here because Pharaoh decides to double down on abuse of the Israelites, and he decides that all the bricks that they were being asked to make before, they were given straw to create the bricks, and now they should have to collect their own straw before they settle into a hard day's labor, and they have to keep up with quotas. So the pressure on the people gets even worse because Moses is going and trying to make their lives better. Moses goes and argues with God about his plans. Your plans aren't working, God. Everything's getting worse. And God says, hey, be patient. I'm going to give you a sign here. Go and meet Pharaoh while he's bathing and turn the Nile to blood. The Nile, at the end of chapter 7, we see that the Nile has been blood for 7 days, and none of the fish can survive, and everybody is having to dig for water alongside the Nile to get any clean water to drink. And so this is where Egypt is starting to feel some of the side effects here of holding on to a people that should not be there. This reminded me a lot of what happens in a healing crisis. I see a lot of people that decide that they're in essence going to free their body from an illness. Here we're freeing the Israelites from a bad situation. And they start in, and it gets worse. Your health gets worse. You have rashes breaking out. You feel worse. Your joints are bad. You lose energy, and it gets really terrible. And just like the Israelites here, you may choose to stay in bondage, stay where you are, even though it's really bad. The bad that you're in is worse or is better than this path towards healing that's taking you down a road of more suffering. And God has to reassure Moses that it's worth walking through this, that there is something on the other side, that there is God's promise, God's established promise with Abraham and his descendants, that one day he is going to give them the land of Canaan, and that there is always going to be good for them, that he is going to walk with them and keep them safe. That's the promise that Moses reminds all of the elders in these chapters, specifically in chapter 6. He comes to them and says, hey guys, God promised us that there is good on the other side. We're just going to have to hang tough. And I would invite you to think about this when you are going through what's called known as a healing crisis, is that God has promised us that our bodies can heal. We can see it all around us in nature at any time. That promise is as evident today as it was when we weren't. Polluted, damaged DNA pool of humanity, we are promised that we can heal. We are promised that there is good on the other side of suffering. And with that knowledge, we can walk through suffering knowing that we can be freed. I hope that God is blessing you today. I pray that He is with you and that He blesses you with this information, and that He inspires you to come back and read more and study with me tomorrow. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.